Some events leave a deep mark on history, but none on the land. This is the site of the Battle of Hastings. After almost 1,000 years, no traces of the bloody conflict can be seen. But here, the fate of England turned. It's where a king was killed, and his victor claimed the throne. October 14th, 1066. We know what happened here on this day, thanks to this. The Bayeux Tapestry. A carefully preserved illustrated Jeanne d'Arc had liberated Orléans and put the English army to flight. However, as the English retreated, they became an obstacle for Charles the Dauphin. He needed a clear path from Chinon to Reims, where he would be crowned king. Nearing the town of Patay, the English sought to regroup. But Jeanne d'Arc and her French army were closing in. Fleeing the Loire Valley, the English were on the run. As they retreated northwards, a French vanguard was in close pursuit. Caught out of position, the French faced a surprise attack from the English rearguard. A detachment of English archers blocked the road with palings, an effective measure against cavalry. The French vanguard had to clear the road if they were to call in reinforcements.
Avant, compagnon. Quando je commande, avant. Achesmets vos armées, avant! Achesmets vos, nous allons! Achesmets les commandements.
With the road cleared, the French army could safely bring in reinforcements from nearby allies. The French army paid their ally and received a detachment of reinforcements.
Archers, oyez commandement. Ne demeurez pointslat du coin. Fuer à parmer. Archers!
Acces vos, comprotre jetzt vos amoi. Avant, compagnon.
Hearing the rallying cry of the English coming from the village of St. Sigmund, the French were alerted to the enemy position.
Incontinent. Je suis votre serveur.
The French recaptured St. Sigmund and prepared to rendezvous with Jeanne d'Arc. But a large English detachment had set up a blockade. So long as that force was in place, the French vanguard could not reach Jeanne. The French army saw a chance to bolster their numbers and sent payment to their ally in return for reinforcements.
Ne demeurex Wenceslas Sukhoi!
Sommes cesse le temps d'adventière, mes seigneurs. Service. Si comme vos voldrez.
Archer, on déguerpit! Archer!
Sommes on ordonnant, retrayez vos amoi. Incontinent.
With the English blockade destroyed, the French vanguard rejoiced at the arrival of Jeanne d'Arc and her troops. With their rearguard eliminated, the remaining English forces would now seek to escape the valley through the town of Patay. 3 enemy regiments were converging on the town along 3 main roads. Jeanne had either to stop the regiments on the roads or race ahead to fortify Patay itself.
Prenez vos axes!
Des ennemis à trouver!
Déverse devant ce river! Suite à l'ennemi!
Ennemis pointoyés!
Pointage! Bien ordonné! Compagnon, marchez derrière! Allons, faisons ce défense!
À trouver!
Compagnon, traite tous en bataille!
Acces vos, Archer!
As the forces of the valiant Jeanne d'Arc entered the town, the people of Patay rallied to her cause.
Archère en la voie. Archers, prenez vos arcs. J'obtiens terre.
Soyez prêts. Veichi les a j'ai besoin. Perfect. À l'arson.
Archers, Oyez, commande archère en la voie.
Oyez, laisse comme une présence. Bien ordonnée. Sus à l'ennemi! Je fais vos commandements. Avant!
Acest mes vos, Archers. Archers, prenez vos arcs. On déguerpit, Archers. Archers, de deux.
Soyez prêts. Veichi les effects sera! À mon cri, avant. S'effecte sera. Je fais votre commandement!
Acest mes vos, Archers. Le ferai-je donc? Obéis au commandement. Si comme le volet. Le ferai-je donc? Oui. Archers, Oyez, archère, allons.
Oyez, les commandements. Compagnons.
Ennemis foudroyés!
Commandement incontinent. Compagnons. Les courez-ou attendent les commandements. Courez-ou transport hiver. Faites vos étriers.
Chevalier,
Compagnons.
asseyez vos ordres. Nous allons. Je cours. J'expresse vos ordres.
Acest mes vos, Archers. Archers, prenez vos arcs. Guerre à farmer.
Quand je commande, avance. Bien oi.
Faites si fait comme toi. Attends, compagnons. À mon cri, avant. Compagnons, marchez derrière. Allons ce sens plus attendre. Perfect. À l'arson.
Archers, Oyez, commandement. Si comme le volet.
Oyez, présence. Bien ordonnée. Bien ordonnée.
Compagnon, va compagnon. Oralvant.
After an intense pursuit and a hard-fought battle, the French crushed the remaining English army, thwarting their desperate retreat. Now the triumphant Jeanne d'Arc could safely lead Charles to Reims for his coronation as King of France. Medieval soldiers suffered brutal injuries in battle. Their chance of survival lay with barber surgeons. From cutting hair to removing limbs on the battlefield, the job of a barber surgeon was varied, and so were their tools.
600 years ago, surgery was very different from today, and this is some of the kit that the surgeons of then would be using. For example, amputations. This bit of kit was used to cut through the skin. Then you need to get through bone, and this is what they used. Believe it or not, this was used for neurosurgery. But what they didn't have at the time was anesthesia.
Despite carrying out major surgery, barber surgeons had no formal training.
What they learned on the job, and the place where they practiced the most was the battlefield.
This was also a time when new surgical techniques were developed, particularly when it came to saving the life of a future king. In 1403, 16-year-old Prince Henry was injured in the Battle of Shrewsbury while fighting rebels trying to overthrow his father, King Henry IV.
The arrow penetrated his right cheek and became lodged at the base of his skull. He was very lucky it didn't kill him instantly.
Prince Henry pulled the arrow from his face. The shaft came out, but the arrowhead remained lodged inside.
They needed to get that out before infection set in and killed him.
To the rescue, celebrated surgeon John Bradmore. Bradmore recorded what he did to save the prince's life, including a picture of the tool he made to extract the arrowhead.
And it works by ensuring that the tip is closed and then inserting it along the track caused by the arrowhead until it meets the arrowhead.
Then the screw is turned to expand the tip, locking it in place inside the arrowhead.
And then ever so slowly and gently, you extract, making sure that you don't lose it along the way. I'm amazed by the skill that would have been needed to do this successfully. Can you imagine how good that felt when that came out?
The young prince survived to become King Henry V, hero of Agincourt. But perhaps the real heroes of medieval medicine were the barber surgeons, who saved countless lives on the battlefield. The Battle of Patay was a disaster for the English. The French wiped out their bowmen and drove their forces from the Loire Valley. Now for Jeanne d'Arc and the Dauphin, the way to Reims was clear. The Maid of Orleans rode with the Dauphin through the streets and was at his side when he was finally crowned King Charles VII of France. But less than 2 years later, Jeanne was captured in battle, sold to the English, and put on trial for heresy. She spent 6 months locked in a dungeon, awaiting her fate. King Charles, who owed his crown to Jeanne, did nothing to help win her freedom. She was found guilty. On May 30th, 1431, Jeanne d'Arc was brought here, to the old market square in Rouen, where she was burned at the stake. She was 19 years old. But what the Maid of Orleans started could not be denied. Her victories were the first in a chain of successes for France's military. Liberty was within reach. Thanks to the leadership of 2 brothers, Jean and Gaspard Bureau, the French army became experts in the use of artillery, transforming it into a disciplined, modern fighting force. In 1448, King Charles was ready to make a major move against the English. He vowed to retake Normandy. King Charles VII's army would soon have access to the most advanced artillery in Europe, thanks to the master gunners, the Bureau brothers. While the brothers developed their weapons, the king laid plans for their use. He would bring Normandy back under French control.
Compagnons, réussis les commandements.
The first phase of the king's plan would give the Bureau brothers time to perfect their cannons. He tasked his army with claiming a base of operations. With the town under French control, the Bureau brothers now had the use of the university and of their own siege workshop. Their next goal was to learn all they could about recent innovations in the mixing of the most potent gunpowder. While the army waited for their new weapons, they kept a watchful eye for any English attacks on the town.
Lors bâtis de s'essuie.
Access Metzvos.
Besoin, Mestier reste enjambeur. Accordé. Lors Batige s'estui. Vecchia à votre commandement. Dostia lores.
Voyez bien, compagnons.
Access Metzvos, ça, compagnon. En bas. Annonce, à part mail. Comme il vous plaise. Bien oeil.
Besoin à faire?
Voyez bien, Sylvain. Je gagne mon gage. Compagnon, nos annonces. Ça, compagnon. En Allemagne. Annonce, à part mail. Comme il vous plaît. Remise par-ci. En Belestier. À moitié de base. Compagnon, nos annonces. Ça, compagnon. En Allemagne.
Homme, un besoin. Fouiller est ma toute vie.
Compagnon, ici les commandements. Ici les commandements. À Chesmet Boss.
Advertence, tout le monde.
Orients, tout le monde.
Et compresse.
The brothers worked tirelessly to cast their gun barrels. But they still needed insight into the latest gunpowder chemistry.
Allons, sans intermoyer. Nostel à Bastille. Ce sera moule bien assouvi, verrez.
J'attends vos advises.
J'ai bonne maîtrise de ce cas. Oyez tous, voici les commandements. Advert à vos ordres suit. Bonner, point Noden.
Advertant bien, prestos avec moi. Bien sec.
Attendez-vous de moi.
Paix, compagnon. Je fais comme il vous plaît.
Qu'attendez-vous de moi?
Sur qui me pouvez-je...
Qui sait aucune...
J'attends ma besogne prochaine. J'attends vos advices.
The Bureau brothers had successfully combined a powerful gunpowder recipe with sturdy cast iron gun barrels. At last, cannon production could begin. While the brothers turned out their cannons, culverins, and riboldequins, the French army would bolster themselves for the coming fight.
Sur qui me faut-il faire?
Causez-vous. On va se tirer. Il nous faut marcher. J'y pourvois tout à tir. Avant, et sans mêler. Ça, guerre d'escale les choses.
Sur qui puis-je faire? Où dois-je descocher mon poisson? Sur qui me puis-je faire? Montrez-moi une quintette. Sur qui dois-je descocher mon poisson? Sur qui? Montrez-moi une quintaine. Où dois-je faire? Où dois-je faire? Paix, archer. Oyez les... Je veille à vos ordonnances. Achestez-vous, archer. Nos dégarnissons. Qui dois-je quintaine? Où dois-je descocher mon poisson? Montrez-moi une quintaine.
Fais ici les...
Un continent aurait des commandements.
Le champ n'attend point. J'y pourvois tout à tir. Avant, bougre de limaçon. Je fais votre commandement. Ne clamez pas. Avancez.
With the mine under French control, the Bureau brothers had access to an abundance of iron for their gun barrels.
Je fais votre commandement. Ne clamez pas, avancez. Où donc m'envoyez-vous? Je fais vos commandements. Optimé. Nous sommes crevés de trait. Posez-vous. Oyez les commandements. Baillez votre commandement. Je suis prêt. Faites comme il vous plaît.
Quoi me plaît, vous êtes en chier!
Envoyez, je fais vos commandements. Optimé. On la fouille vers la page. La gloire nos attend. Nos carrières sont prêts pour discuter. Soyez attendez. J'y pourvois. J'appuie, cesse de garder. Nous entendons quoi? Soyez inquiets. Je t'embête.
Archer, archer, allons. Marchons sans tarder, archer. Je vais te... Archer! Oyez le commandement!
Je fais comme il vous plaît. Ça, guerre déscarte les choses. Ne clamez pas. Avancez. Guerre d'escarpe les choses. J'ai pour moi. Je fais votre commandement. Avant. Arbalète triée. Triez bas.
Archer, j'arrive à vos ordonnances. Archer, Archer. Ici vos commandements de tir. Arbalète triée. Expected, Archer. Si devez-vous. Arbalète, Archer. Peignez vos bagues et marchons, Archer. Archer, allons. Achèvez-vous, Archer. Nous déguerpissons.
After raising the river port, the French soldiers seized a stockpile of shipworthy timber, which could be used for superior cannon frames.
Archer, si peignez vos bagues et marchons.
Nos carrels sont prêts pour prêt.
Où dois-je descocher mon cloachon?
Fait, compagnons. Si les commandements. J'ai pourvoué.
Archer, peignez vos bagues et marchons. Archer, marchons sans tarder, Archer.
With the skirmish won, trade could begin with the settlement.
Je fais comme il vous plaît.
Archer, je me complais de tels commandements.
Posez-vous. Avant et sans bête.
Archer, expectez les commandements.
Fait, soudain.
Fait, Archer, oyez les commandements. Archer, si devez-vous exercer. Je me complais de tels commandements. Achèvez-vous, Archer. Nous déguerpissons. Archer, allons. Je ferai votre commandement. Ils nous ont abattus.
Soudain. Fait ici de nouvelles. Fait votre commandement.
Faites, Archer. Oyez les commandements. Archer, expectez les arbalétriers. Archer, déclenchez. Achèvez-vous, Archer. Nous déguerpissons. Archer, excès d'ordonnance bien à faire. Je reste de tir à votre obéissance. Archer,
Fait, compagnons. J'ai pourvoué.
Archer d'ordonnance bien à faire. Marchons.
Soudain, ne clamez pas, avancez. Forestier, il nous faut marcher. Putain, guerre d'esgate les choses.
Archer, si déprenez vos bagues et marchons.
Posez-vous. Voyez les commandements. Joli, j'entendais.
Archer, Archer, Fait, Archer, oyez les commandements. Archer, si devez-vous assister. Achèvez-vous, Archer. Aux arbalètes, Archer, expectez les commandements.
Nos carrels sont prêts. J'ai pourvoué tout à dire. Forestier, il nous faut marcher. Avant et sauvez-les. Je fais comme il vous plaît. J'ai pourvoué tout à dire. Ça, ne nous entendons point. Nos arbalètes sont cette espèce.
Avez-vous commandement pour moi? Bien contraint, y vais. Nous attendons les commandements. Cesse de jouer.
Soudard, fait ici de
Soudard,
Je fais votre commandement.
Si devez-vous acesme.
Arbalétrier!
Paix, archer. Oyez les commandements. Régnez vos barres, archers. Dès que je me complais de tels commandements. Je me complais de tels commandements. Je ferai votre commandement. Je veille à vos ordonnances.
Mes compagnons, si les commandements.
Ils nous ont attaqués! Nous dégarpissons!
Hey, Souda, j'y pourvois.
Charrette preste pour aller.
The brothers now had every available advantage in producing their guns.
Archers! Ici! Oyez vos barres, marchons, archers! Archers!
Portez-vous. Joy et j'entendrai. Ne clamez pas, avancez. Soudard, ça. Guerre désgâte les choses.
Soudard!
J'y pourvois.
Archers! Ici vos commandements!
Écoutez-vous. Oyez les commandements.
Archers! Expectez les commandements! Foutez-les sans merci!
The French army bore down on the formidable walls of Rouen, ready to launch their final assault on this key English stronghold.
J'y pourvois tout à tir. Je fais votre commandement. Un autre ennemi embranché. Nos Joy et j'entends. Arbalétrier.
Archers! Expectez les commandements!
Arbalétrier.
Archers! Si devez-vous acesme! Archers! Ici vos commandements! Archers!
At last, the French artillery weapons were ready for deployment. After years of preparation, the time had come for Charles VII to make his move. To take back Normandy, he would need to recapture the stronghold of Rouen, a critical fortress from which the English had been attacking Paris. Rouen walls would face an explosive trial against the mighty force of gunpowder.
Advise pour votre engin. Archer, si devez-vous assesmer. Comme à la quintaine, tirez.
Mes compagnons, si les commandements.
Voyez tous, voici les commandements.
Paix, Soudard. Veille.
Paix, archer.
Soudard.
Archer, expectez les commandements. Archer, voici vos commandements.
Dicte-nous quel quintaine à battre.
Archer, expect Archer, paix, Archer. Oyez les premiers premiers marchands. Archer, adjectez-vous, Archer.
C'est vous. Oyez les commandements.
Dicte-nous quel quintaine à battre.
Nos mouvons l'artillerie. Reste tous jusqu'au bout pour nous. Archer! Si devez-vous être...
Soudain, fais ici de nouvelles commandements.
Advise pour vos engins, dicte-nos quelqu'un t'aime abattre. Advise pour vos engins, ainsi soit-il. Advise pour vos engins. Alarme! Point de merci pour nul. Dicte-nos quelqu'un t'aime abattre. Nous les allons poudroyer.
Archer! Si c'est cette ordonnance, bien à faire. Archer! Allons! Prenez vos bagues et marchons, Archer! Je vais de tir à votre obéissance! Adjectez-vous, Archer! Nous dégarpissons l'ennemi échoué! Allons! Adjectez-vous, Archer! Nous dégarpissons!
Compagnons, si les commandements.
Les engins se meurent. Nous accomplissons vos ordres.
Archer! Expectez!
Soudain, fais ici les commandements.
Dicte-nous. Très bien. Changeons d'assiette. Advise. Ainsi sera fait.
Archer! Prenez vos bagues et marchons! Archer!
Reste tous.
Archer! Si devez-vous être Archer! Allons!
Soudain, fais ici de nouvelles commandements.
Advise pour vos engins. Tout est ordonné. Point de faille, votre trait.
Faites, soudain, escoutez avant et sans mêler. Ne clamez pas, avancez.
Rouen walls were breached. The French army had at last exposed the heart of the fortress. Having lost the walls of Rouen, the English made a last stand to hold the city. The French would need to destroy the buildings that had housed the English army and drive out the enemy for good.
Archer! Je me complais de tels commandements. Je vais te dire à votre...
Les engins de ciel sont prêts.
Ce sont cette espèce, les soudains, soyez prêts. Soyez prêts. Je fais ma commandement. Nos arbalètes sont cette espèce. Nos carrières sont prêts.
Engins de ciel actifs. Ils vont bâtir. Ainsi soit-il. C'est quasi assouvi.
Arbalétriers, nos assommés. Je fais comme il vous plaît.
Tout est ordonné. Point de faille, votre trait.
Nos arbalètes sont cette espèce. Et pour vrai. Arbalétriers, soyez respectés.
Engins de ciel, ça faut aller.
Arbalétriers, criez bas.
Ainsi sera fait. Ça en va. En arrière.
Nos carrés sont prêts. J'ai pas tout à dire.
Tout est ordonné.
Les arbalètes sont cette espèce.
C'est l'heure de trait. Ils vont partir de notre île. Ils vont partir de notre île. Les engins se lèvent.
Un poisson d'entre la demi!
Nos carrés, j'ai pour vrai. J'ai pour toi tout à dire.
Tout est ordonné. Oui, la pardon. Engins de siège, ça faut aller.
Arbalétriers avant et sans mêler.
Les engins de siège sont prêts. Engins, c'est l'heure de trait.
Arbalétriers, criez bas. Nos carrés sont prêts. Maître de
Les
carré.
engins de siège sont prêts. Oui, la pardon.
Nos arbalètes sont prêts. Arbalétriers, criez bas.
Tout est ordonné.
With the English scattered and their buildings in ashes, the French had recaptured the critical fortress of Rouen. Charles VII had proven that France was no longer the underdog in the 100 Years' War. After decades of bloody dispute, Normandy was finally back in French hands. The Battle of Patay was a disaster for the English. During the 14th century, the face of war in Europe changed forever. Thanks to a substance invented by the Chinese while searching for the elixir of life. Gunpowder. One of the first guns used on the battlefields of Europe was this. The bombard.
This is a large stone-throwing gun for moving big projectiles like this up and over and through castle walls.
Before the invention of the cannon, castle wall-busting projectiles had been thrown by trebuchets.
This is what took over from the trebuchet. Far easier to move from castle to castle.
Its design was simplicity itself, drawing on the skills of the barrel maker.
This has metal staves, lengthways, and then lots of hoops holding those staves under compression. So this is why we now call this the gun barrel as well.
The bombard was no more powerful than a trebuchet, but it did have a psychological impact on the enemy.
If we take it back several hundred years, and the loudest thing is a cockerel crowing or a brawl in the pub on a Saturday night, these things are horrendously frightening.
As metallurgy improved, barrels could be made longer, increasing accuracy and power. They progressed from taking down walls to taking out soldiers, replacing the bow and arrow.
A typical arrow would get stuck in this sort of material, where ball just goes straight through. So compared to a bow and arrow, this is far more deadly.
During the 100 Years' War, there was even a precursor to the machine gun, the Ribauldequin.
She's got several barrels on her. This is the sort of gun that would have been very much against people being able to spread your shot out and hit large numbers of people in one go.
Gunpowder revolutionized warfare throughout the 100 Years' War, changing the way battles were fought forever. Thanks to the explosive force of cannon fire, the French were close to victory in this century-long war. But in a final grasp at power, the English dispatched a fresh army, equipped with their tried and tested longbows. Formigny would be a trial of old versus new, to determine the fate of France. English commander Sir Thomas Kyriel sent a large expedition to crush the French in Normandy. The village of Carentan was directly in their path. Massively outnumbered, the French skirmishers near Carentan would give their lives to weaken the English.
Je vais me dire à votre obéissance. Je me complais de
Though they fought bravely, the French skirmishers could only slow the English advance. The main body of the French army finally arrived in the river valley. The French now needed to locate and destroy the English army. But they would face a well-entrenched enemy with several local garrisons.
Ben, compagnons, si les commandements. Voyez bien, ici les commandements. En avant, reste tous en mesnée. Avant, tournoyons en mesnée. Déforrez vos armes. Avant. L'ennemi nous assaut de longue traite. Je fais votre commandement.
The French destroyed the garrison at Briquebec. French forces found a detachment of the English army attacking the town of Valognes. If they could stop the attack, they might gain valuable resources. With the English attack on Valognes halted, the citizens moved to support the French army.
un peu la dissonance d'armes.
Allons plus que le pas. Délaissons ces scrilieux. Délaissons ces scrilieux. En avant, reste tous en mesnée. Je vais devant, ridez derrière. sera fait selon votre commandement. Allons plus que le pas. Prêt pour un Astier? Allons plus que le pas. Nous délaissons Cestuilieu. En avant, reste tous en mesnée. Je fais votre commandement. Je vais devant, ridez derrière. Nous délaissons Cestuilieu. Tiens-vous, Samuel. Allons plus que le pas. Ainsi soit fait. En avant, reste tous en mesnée. Nos destriers rongent leur frein. Piquez des deux. Moustilier, nous allons. Moustilier, en ordonnance. Nous allons. En arceau, Moustilier. Nous allons, je vais devant. À l'arceau, Moustilier, nous allons. Piquez des deux. Tiens-vous, Samoué. Je fais votre commande. Prêt pour les... En avant. Reste tous les couches. Ainsi soit fait. Nous allons avoir. Je vais devant. Ridez derrière. Déforez-les, vos armes. Sus à l'ennemi. Si sera fait selon votre commandement. Ainsi soit fait.
The French forces located Kyriel's English army at a river crossing near the town of Formigny. Several of the Bureau brothers' heavy guns and other forces arrived to help.
Tout est... C'est quasi assuré.
Even with their cannons, the French faced the difficult task of engaging the well-positioned English army. Received word that their Breton allies had arrived with their knights and horsemen. Now the two armies could coordinate. The Bretons saw an opportunity to attack the English from the back. Beset by the French, the English beat a hasty retreat toward Formigny. The English survivors entered Formigny. The French would have to take this town to secure victory.
Prestum pour la bataille. Chevalier en ordre. Baisse avant et sans mêlée. Je fais votre commandement. Forestier, il nous faut marcher.
Les engins de siège sont prêts. Ils vont pâtir de notre île. C'est l'heure de trêve.
Le champ nous attend.
Engins de siège assis.
Qui sont oui, chevalier. Faites comme il vous plaît. Chevalier, on voit votre souhait.
With the last English army destroyed and the gates of Formigny thrown open, the French force in Normandy was victorious. Their well-organized forces and superior firepower had brought the arduous 100 Years' War closer to its conclusion. Before the invention of printing in the 15th century, books were painstakingly copied by hand. The finest were illuminated with brilliant colors and real gold. Illuminated text wasn't just for show. Gilded illustrations decorated important passages to highlight their significance.
Gold was used in many medieval manuscripts from early days because it was very expensive and it indicated that the manuscript itself was valuable. The light would reflect from candles or from the sunlight and so it looked as though the book itself was illuminated. In medieval manuscripts, it looks as though this is solid gold. In fact, it's not. The gold itself is tissue thin.
The solid appearance is achieved by laying the gold on a cushion of plaster mixed with glue, called gesso.
By raising the gold from the surface of the skin, that means that it catches the light even more.
The glue in the gesso is softened by breathing on it.
We then have 3 seconds to get the gold on, and I'm using a burnisher, which is a polished stone, just to make sure that the gold sticks. Then the burnisher is used to polish the gold up. See, it's coming up now. So it's coming nice and shiny.
Next, the miniature is painted.
The base colour will be done first, then the tints and the shades will be added, and finally, the white highlights and the outline, which lifts it and brings the whole thing to life.
The medieval paint box contained pigments from across the world, such as ultramarine from Afghanistan and orpiment gathered from volcanic craters.
It often took a long time to complete these medieval miniatures. This one between a month and 6 weeks, from start to finish.
An entire book could take a team of illuminators several years to complete. Many medieval manuscripts still survive today, fully preserved, with their colours just as vivid as the day they were illustrated. At Formigny, the roar of cannon fire sounded the death knell for England's ambitions in France. King Charles and the Bureau brothers did not let up on the offensive, and in 1453, the English retreated across the Channel. France was finally at peace. More than 100 years had passed since the first English chevauchés had scorched the land. The iconic French knights who fought in those early days would not have recognized their own military a century later. The English longbow, once the scourge of France, was no match for French artillery in the last years of the war. And by 1453, France's border looked very different, growing to encompass territories once claimed by England and their allies. After enduring a century of conflict, France emerged as a transformed nation. The country and its people had persevered and unified into a kingdom that could defend itself. Against all odds, France had won the 100 Years' War. At Formigny, the roar of cannon fire